It's spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to spoil you on The Shield as we get near the end of the run, episode 10 of season 7, The Walking Dead, episode 2 of season 6, the first episode of season 2 of Fargo, and the third episode of the second season of The Leftovers, and the Netflix original movie Beasts of No Nation, which I, Tom Merritt, watched, and you, Brian Brushwood, also watched.
I did indeed, and I have thoughts and things to say about him. But
so many things.
Shall we begin with triage or by checking in on the movie draft?
Winter is coming, Brian.
So we'll go to draft.diamondclub.tv.
Chips and chips. Bumps and goose.
Malango continues his reign of terror as the Martian racks up even more money. It creeps up on $143 million, making it so far the best purchase in the draft. Malango's in first. Ibit, despite having 3 movies, all of which came out in the same weekend, has only $54 million. Tom, just on the first weekend of Goosebumps, I guess, got $23 million.
Yeah, not bad, actually. At a $5 purchase.
Well, and that's the real thing.
$2 per dollar spent movie.
You are about to overtake the best purchase of the entire game so far. Coming up next week, we got The Last Witch Hunter. And
another
of course,
one of mine.
Oh, that's right. Wow, yeah, you're all over
and
this.
Gem and the Holograms, another one of mine, for $3.
Dude, you're going to have spent $13. You're going to be over $100 million just on that $13. That's amazing.
I mean, it's not a bad strategy. I'm certainly not a lock, and we all know that you're going to win because you have Star Wars: The Force Awakens and it's crashing websites.
Well,
but don't forget Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension with Malango. He gets his second movie. He's going to solidify his first place.
No. That movie's going to make $35 and less than a taco, and he's.
But that puts him $35 and a taco plus $143 million in front of everybody else.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, I think that was a misstep for him to pay $14 for that one.
Might not be worth $14. I'm with you there. Yeah.
But for the first time, I walked out of the draft feeling excited that I knew for sure I wasn't going to be last place. That Star Wars, would probably, even at only 75% of gross, would get me to the respectable range. Man, this hype engine going into overdrive right now has me optimistic that I'm not going to say I'm going to win, but I'm going to say I'm going to be within striking distance. It's going to be a near thing.
As somebody who was told that they would absolutely win the movie draft this past summer, my advice to you, Brian, is enjoy it. Don't second guess it. Live for the moment.
Guess what? That joy that you have is as close as you're going to actually get to winning. So soak it in.
You'll either get more joy, which that's not a bad thing.
That's true.
Or you'll be savoring the joy you have.
Fair enough.
Hey, we got an email from Steve who said, hey, I just wanted to point out some lesser known shows for when The Shield is done. Because we probably, we don't have to, but we probably will pick another show to follow every week like that. He suggests Manhattan, which is still ongoing. It's about the building of the atomic bomb. He said it picked up slowly in season 1, but is running on all cylinders now. Borgen, which is finally on iTunes, sort of a Danish The West Wing. And Les Revenants, which is on Netflix, a different kind of zombie show that only the French could make.
And then he says, glad you're covering The Leftovers, as if it's like a pity pat on the head as well.
Because some people may be skeptical about these recommendations and also might not like The Leftovers. I was leaving that out. But
okay. So let's say this. He does bring up a very good point, which is, if we're going to pick up a random show to plow through, now is a good time to pitch them to us.
For sure. What do you think about because Manhattan looks the most interesting of all of these to me, although I'm actually interested in all of them. What do you think about doing a show that's still in production, though? I feel like to replace The Shield.
Yeah,
we've got all kinds of shows that are in production that we can watch,
or at least one that we would end up as it's wrapping up. I wouldn't mind starting. If we hadn't already been watching it, Game of Thrones or something like that. Or what might be fun is, did you ever watch American Horror Story? Doing an anthology series, just something that we could do a one and done of just that season.
That would be something we could do. We could do like the first 2 seasons and then not bother with the third yet.
Sure.
Like
Right, exactly.
I feel like I would rather, just for logistical sake, pick a show that has 5 to 7 seasons in the bank. Because The Shield as fun as it is to watch, also serves the purpose as our backstop where we always know we have one episode to watch.
That is true. Man, you know what? Let's kick it over to the audience. Hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com.
You got the other email there?
Other email says from Ryan. He says that he recalled that I thought the minister, Doctor Who, he means Christopher Eccleston from The Leftovers, was a priest in Spoilerin time. I'm pretty certain he's a minister, but he's referred to as a priest by the tubby gray-haired cop in a derogatory sense. I thought he was a priest too until he had a catatonic wife. And even if the Catholic Church rescinded the ban on marriage after the rapture, in the flashback it looks like they were together before the rapture. So yes, I was wrong, but also so were characters in the show, and so was this guy as well. So he has a very Catholic-y vibe about him, is all I'm saying.
All right, let's talk about the Netflix original Beasts of No Nation. This appeared in theaters as well as on Netflix on Friday. Brian and I both watched it, and were you prepared? I was prepared for this to be a downer. In fact, I knew that this was not something that Eileen was going to want to watch with me. And I was like, you don't want to watch this with me. She's like, what do you mean I don't want to watch it with me? I was like, you don't want to watch like some action movies because they're too intense sometimes. Like, I know you don't want to watch this. Turns out that I probably should have said something like that to you as well.
Yeah, well, and I knew, I knew that it was about child soldiers. I knew it was based on, a real situation. If do you know, is it based on a true story, or
it's based on a book, which is a telling of true stories.
Yeah, but I told Bonnie, I was like, hey, so there's a Netflix thing, and they're actually putting it out in theaters so that they can get Oscar consideration. I'm gonna watch it. It's about child soldiers in Africa. You want to watch it with me? She says sure, and it's interesting because, about halfway through, a little over an hour, you get to, I would say, arguably the most intense scene of the entire movie, wherein, a mother is being raped in front of a child, and a child is being curb stomped by other children. As often happens in these scenes, the real horrific things are shown off camera, which only makes them all the more horrific. And that's the moment that Bonnie stood up and marched out and was just angry. She's just angry and unfortunately, we had different ways of being in. I was so into it that I couldn't, I couldn't take myself out of the movie. So Bonnie steps up and I think what she meant was, I feel terrible and sick and I need you to support me. But what she said was, what is the point of this? What is this? Why are they doing this? And me, of course, I'm just in the moment. I answered poorly, saying like, the producers, they didn't return my phone calls. I don't know why they did it. I assume if we watch the rest of the movie, maybe we'll get an answer to that. And she got upset and just ended up leaving. And it was more my fault than hers. But I was like, why are you mad at me? I didn't make this thing. I didn't, it's like, I'm watching the movie like you. But at any rate, it had a very profound impact on Bonnie, that scene. I don't know.
In all honesty, that is why they made the movie, because this is real. It's one thing to watch a vampire flick or some space adventure and they get that graphic and you're like, come on, why do you got to do that? What's the point? What are you trying to make? To me, the brilliance of this movie was they had started with happy-go-lucky children, and I was like, wow, this is actually putting a real human face on what would normally be posed as a very tragic circumstance. Like, this was a perfectly normal family joking around, having fun, not living in horrible squalor, but also not obviously living in a country that had all of the benefits of Western society, but they had a television and the kids played a prank and took the television off and then just led you through until you realize that, wow, that same boy that I knew an hour ago is now involved in this, and it makes perfect sense to me why he is, and that is awful. And so her jumping up and saying, this is horrible, what's the point, why are you doing this? If I were to speak for the producer, it would be, yes, that's what you should be saying to the fact that this sort of thing happens.
Yeah. Now, separate from all of that, I understand the need to do all that to tell the story that they wanted to tell. I think the acting was extraordinary. I think that especially the child acting was phenomenal.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, you're about to say they killed it.
I almost said killer, and which also, but yeah.
However, I never felt swept away or hopeful or felt like there was I mean, it's like the whole thing ended and my thought was, well, that happened. That's an accurate portrayal of what I assume, is the horrific thing happening on the other side of the world. And I felt I was left powerless and I mean, I don't know. What do you say? It was like watching a building burning down. You're like, oh, and then this is the part where the, oxygen tanks explode, and now it's going to collapse in on its own weight, and now we're going to be really sad that there was a multi-billion-dollar building, and now there's just cinders on the ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is not entertainment.
I agree. There was nothing entertaining about it. And worse yet, there was nothing transformative about it. I could go through something not entertaining if I feel like I was made to grow and develop and get something on the other side, but I got nothing out of it. And in that regard, maybe that was the point. Maybe it was just a rumination of what a real tragedy looks like. I felt, true confession, I never finished Apocalypse Now because I watched the first half and I'm like, yeah, that looks like the Vietnam War, which looks like it sucked. And it looks like nothing got solved and nothing got fixed. So I'm not going to watch the rest of this movie. And that's how I felt during this.
And if you have a historical interest in the Vietnam War, I would say you should go back and finish the Apocalypse Now. But the fact is, Vietnam has changed quite a bit. And so watching that movie is not going to inform your current perspective on Vietnam. This movie will absolutely form your current perspective on events in parts of Africa. My problem with it is I didn't feel like they contextualized this as far as where in Africa we were. They didn't make I felt like it was a little bit guilty of saying this is what Africa is like, and that's not what Africa is like. That's what a part of Africa is like. And so I wish they would have really made it clear, like, we are in a section of Africa that is not necessarily representative of every part of Africa, but is certainly representative of parts of Africa. And in that case, I felt like they did a very good job of saying, if you want to be pulled out of your perspective and shown someone else's so that you have a better understanding of the conditions under which, basically this is the answer to someone reading in the newspaper that child soldiers are fighting in a region and going, how does this happen? This is the answer to that question.
Okay, number one, your last point was extremely salient, and I absolutely agree with it. I also disagree with your first point in that I adored the fact that it did not attempt to give me a historical time or place. Now, I suspect this was based...
Just so you get me clear, I'm not saying you have to tell me it's even a real country, but there is a problem with only showing Africa as impoverished and at war, and there are large parts of Africa that are modern and successful. Yes. So it's a minor point.
No, and okay, that's fair enough. But to me, it universalized the message of the movie, and the message of the movie is, of course, like, this is what it looks like, and this is how terrible it is. I don't know. It's gonna stick with me. I almost feel like it's not fair to give an impression the day after I watched it. I feel like I need, a lifetime to digest it and decide how I feel about it.
I would call that a successful movie.
I mean, certainly it's successful art. I don't know that it's what I want out of a movie, in that I didn't feel the needle move. I didn't feel transformed. Again, I just watched a house burn down. It is exactly as artistic as that. So,
except watching a house burn down, you may say, well, I've seen a house burn down, and that's not my house, and there's nothing I can do about that house. And maybe you still feel that way about this movie, and that's perfectly fair. But this is not something that you or I are going to see happen.
Yeah, except we did.
And we still haven't. We've seen a dramatic portrayal of it, but it certainly is a lot closer to understanding it. And I would almost call this very similar to the Steve Jobs movie, except the Steve Jobs movie is exposing a person, and it's not exposing like a horrible traumatic event that are happening to people and it shouldn't be happening. Steve Jobs was saying, we're not going to tell you the history of Steve Jobs. We're going to give you a character study that lets you understand Steve Jobs. And what this did is said, we're actually going to give you a dramatic portrayal of real events that help you to understand more about how these sorts of things happen.
Yeah. Man, it's weird. I mean, I'm so affected by this movie that I'm not even comfortable talking about it much more. But
well, let's move on to something that's not any happier, but at least is entirely fictional: The Leftovers.
Is it entirely fictional, Tom?
I don't know.
There's
a
book,
glibly,
a best-selling book that says it'll come true. No, dude. For the record. Number one, up until now, we have praised The Leftovers' ability to make a massive, massive pivot in a way that took us along for the ride, that didn't feel like a gratuitous reboot, that didn't feel like, oh, now we need to add Cousin Oliver because ratings. I believed all of the reasons that took them to Jarden, Texas. I believed all the characters. This episode was fantastic because what few lingering questions I had about the other characters are answered, and they're answered spectacularly. All of a sudden, I found myself like the second season is so much better than the first season. But Justin asked me whether or not he should watch the first season. And at first I was like, well, skip it because it'll be the difference between you actually continuing it and not. And yet, having watched the first season and knowing the backstory of the Guilty Remnant and knowing what a triumph it is that Tom Garvey is infiltrating, their ranks and so on, and yet is still haunted by, Dr. Hugs-a-Lot, as we fondly call him. I really, really dig that I had that past archive of thoughts and knowledge going into this episode is so good. This season is so good. What say you?
I 100% agree. These last two episodes have turned me around on The Leftovers. I absolutely agree that you can't enjoy these 3 episodes of The Leftovers as much, or maybe not at all, without having seen at least parts of season 1. I almost wish someone could go and do a cut down of season 1 that says, here are the essential elements that you need to experience in order to appreciate these. Because as much as at the beginning of this episode, I was like, I really want to go back to the Texas thing. I want to know what's happened in the Texas thing. By the end, I was like, great. I know we're going back there next week and that's fine. These past 2 episodes have been answer, perspective shift, see Jill from the other side and see a totally different way of experiencing the same event, the way we did with Garvey walking into his house in Texas. It's just so well put together and so well done, and the kinds of answers that you want without answering the questions that take away the mystery. Correct.
Or just, couching things in a way that makes for much deeper and more interesting questions. I did like, and it of course was an intentional thing. Last episode, we saw Kevin Garvey trying to drown out the voices in his head by listening to, punk music, even in the middle of the night, throwing on punk music. And there's that whole scene. He's going about his day listening to the Pixies' Where Is My Mind? We get the echoes of that. There it is. The piano solo version of Pixies' Where Is My Mind shows up in the third episode as well. It was great. I loved everything about it. And all of a sudden, Garvey's wife became so much more interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. No, she is angry. She got anger issues. But we're seeing the Lori that was there before the Guilty Remnant. And yet she's different because of that anger. And that anger is not just against the Guilty Remnant. It's also against what happened. It's against her husband. It's against the world. And then there's a piece here that I read in IO9's recap about Australia that I'm going to start watching. They suggest that the letters that the guy in the watchtower in Texas are sending are to Australia, but I haven't been able to confirm that we know that or that's just their guess. But they do talk about how Garvey's dad said he was going to Australia, and the publisher that's talking to Lori mentions that wingnut in Australia who said he went to the other side and came back and can't die anymore.
Yeah, well, that moment definitely smacked of a big setup. And I don't know, I don't think that's supposed to be Kevin Garvey's dad because, we just saw him announce 20 minutes ago that he's going to go to Australia.
Yeah. So, no, I don't think it's supposed to be him, but there's definitely like Kevin Garvey's dad's over there. Yeah, the wingnut's over there.
Yeah. Well, I also loved the casual way that they mentioned the other best-selling books about the the event that it's like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to answer this question, and just seeing her experience trivialized, sending Lori into a rage. It was very satisfying. They're 3 for 3. Season 2 is now, granted, your mileage may vary. I went through season 1 generally liking the world and the characters, if not the pacing. But season 2, even the opening credit sequence has grown on me. It doesn't look nearly as silly as I thought it did.
I'd call it 2 for 3 for me, or maybe 2.5 for 3. But still, these last 2 episodes, 100% agree. Very strong. What we don't necessarily agree on is Fargo, episode 1 of season 2. Now, I think this is an example of me sometimes just not being very critical about stuff, because I watched Fargo and I thought, oh, okay, this is like a mirror of last season with slight differences. It's a funhouse mirror. It's the 70s, not the present tense. Martin Freeman's character is now split into 2 because it's a couple, but we're starting with a death and people trying to deal with it and cover it up. And we've got a sheriff who deals with another law enforcement official who doesn't want to be bothered, but he thinks he can investigate, and he's actually a Solverson, just like Molly Solverson. You had a totally different reaction.
Yeah, and understand, I'm not saying that I'm out. I am going to watch the entire season. They definitely proved last season that they really know how to tell a good narrative and get me along for the ride. But there was just a confluence of over-the-top idiocy. Now, keep in mind, Fargo has always been, in its original movie form, it has been this fusion of strangeness with horrific the reality of murder and solving murders and so on. Unfortunately, you have, our touchstone is a criminal family, which, by the way, I love seeing Michael Hogan as the crime boss dad. Colonel Ty was awesome. But you've got the. By the way, is that Macaulay Culkin? Am I remembering that correctly?
I'll check.
Our main. He looks vaguely like Jake Gyllenhaal. Kieran Culkin, they're saying. So it's his brother. Got it. So okay. So here's the thing: is our touchstone is we have a kicked dog. That is, I guess we're supposed to feel for, like, we want him to succeed in the way that we had, Martin Freeman was our kicked dog, and William H. Macy was our kicked dog. Unfortunately, our kicked dog this year happens to be in a criminal family. And as often happens, there's a strange confluence of events that happens in the original crime in each of the Fargo stories, including the movie. This one, a bit too over the top. He goes in wanting to intimidate an unintimidable judge who bug sprays him in the face. First thing goes wrong. Whoops, I got bug sprayed. Then, oh yeah, I shot her. Then, surprise, dude from the back comes swinging around to kill me, but I kill him. Also, I kill the girl for good measure. Second surprise. Oh wait, the girl's not dead. She's out. I'm going to go out. I'm going to blast her with a headshot out there. Thank goodness. That's a lot of surprises. This is a messy situation. Oh yeah, by the way, let's throw a damned UFO, not a hallucination, but a full-on
do we know it really was a UFO?
Style UFO. And then, because that's not weird enough, let's also have him randomly get run over by a car. And then one more twist. Let's also have that car being driven by a sociopathic weirdo chick who drives home with the corpse and then makes some hamburger helper afterward. It's just too much weird too soon for me. Totally took me out of it.
All right, let's move on to The Walking Dead, episode 2 of season 6, wherein we think we're going to find out what happens after that zombie horde in episode 1 is headed towards the town, and all we find out is how the horn went off. But wow, we actually really don't see many zombies at all in this sort of thing, and yet it's terrifying.
So your recommendation, and I did not, I'm fully spoil me on all this, but you, I did not get around to seeing episode 1 of this season. You gave it a hearty yes, go watch it recommendation. Does that continue?
Yes.
Through episode 2? Oh wow, no hesitation.
Even more. First episode is like an excellent story craft episode, telling what I think is a good plot mover. This episode is telling us what's happening on the home front, and really meshes with the first episode in so many ways, because all the people who know what they're doing are gone. And suddenly it pays off on the W people, that with the W cut into their heads from last season, and what they've been doing. We've been wondering, like, okay, where are they? Well, now we know where they are. You get to see Carol come out from behind her apron and really step up, because she's kind of, her and Carl are sort of the only people left in town who've really had experience in the real world.
Dude, I am excited to watch it now.
Good. All right, let's move on to The Shield. Season 7. Episode 10. And I've got a weird thing going on here. And I can't imagine it would have been that much different for people actually watching when it was new. Lots of stuff happened. Lots of important stuff. Lots of stuff that I was ready to see. Some even surprising stuff. But I just felt impatient this entire episode to be getting on with it.
Man, yes. Well, and keep in mind, you were given a lot. Things that you saw this episode. First of all, you saw Vic Mackey in a position to remove all pretense. And again, you see him closer to that sweet position of being a dirty cop turned perfect ICE informant, when he is told to he's told to execute a hit by the cartel on that one guy whose name I already forgot. Pizuela, yeah. And instead pulls the gun on him and says, guess what? You got lucky, because the one guy who told, who they happen to book for this hit happens to be working for ICE, and that's me. And then he's able to go and take it to ICE. And then, so that Vic's situation is looking better than it's looked at any point. I mean, in this season, right?
Yeah, my only problem with that situation is it feels like a season 5 Vic situation, right? It doesn't have the gravitas of this is going to end your career. It's Vic on the rebound. Like, I figured my way out of the situation, except he really hasn't, because we have, the facts of the matter from Shane still running wild out there. And I guess the best part of this episode for me is when Vic is on the phone with Shane while Mara is on the phone with Corinne, and Wims is listening in at first, and then talking directly to Mara. And we hear Shane talk about the bullet that went in Terry's head. And for a split second, probably, I don't know if I'm the only one, for a split second, I was like, oh, shit, Wims heard that. And then I'm like, no, she probably didn't. But like, wow, that nicely played to have that information just skate razor's edge from being exposed.
Yeah. Actually, my favorite part of this episode were the tender moments in the middle of a firestorm, in the middle of being on the run and, literally running for their lives, as they stay squatting in a random, real estate.
House. Well, not abandoned. Yeah. House for sale.
Yeah. Real estate
Unoccupied real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of that moment where Mara's skinny dipping and he dives in with her, and yet in the, and they're whispering sweet nothings about how the kid's going to sleep or whatever, or is not sleeping. You feel the noose tightening around them, right? And especially, and they lose $100,000. They lose their nest egg, and they're having to make increasingly more desperate plays. And yet that moment when Mara is offered an out, when she's given a chance to jump ship and like, hey man, let's just, Shane will do some time. It won't be as bad as Vic, but we can take care of you. Then, and the first thing she says is, yeah, Corinne's working with the police. Like, that was amazing.
I was, and I was really on the fence when she hung up the phone. I'm like, well, she's either going to flat out tell him or she's going to play him. And I really didn't know. I really didn't know which way she was going to go. I'm not surprised that Mara told him, because that does fit with her character, but I also wouldn't have been shocked if she had finally cracked and been like, gosh, I just had this tender moment. I want things to be better. I want things to be okay. But I think what they're showing here is Mara is loyal to the things that she's loyal to. And Mara wants more than a compromise solution. She wants it all.
Yeah, well, and she is totally loyal to one thing, and that is Shane, and that is consistent with how she's been the entire way. You know, she's been loyal to a fault where she wants to be involved with Shane's doings.
There was a part in the early situation with the money train stuff where her loyalty looked like it perhaps could waver, and I think what we're saying, no, it couldn't have. That was just her being angry. She is 100% loyal to Shane.
Right. Now, she's not loyal to the strike team. She's not loyal to Vic Mackey. She is loyal to Shane, and only Shane. Yeah. And if there was money to be had, she felt like Shane deserved it.
Well, that is it for Spoilerin' Time this time, everybody. I hope you feel properly spoiled, and we will spoil you again next time.
Yeah.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.